Yavapai Broadcasting and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers. Here's Cottonwood City Manager Doug Bartosh.
Hello, and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and also your city manager. And we have a, I don't know if I'd call him a special guest, but we have our fire chief, Mike Casson, who soon won't be our fire chief. Mike has decided to retire May 23rd and go off into the sunset and enjoy life. Yes. Although I think he's been enjoying life for a long time. But anyway, you know, Mike and I guess we go back here 7 years, but Mike and I knew a lot of the same people when he worked for Rural Metro down in Scottsdale. So Mike and I connected right away when I got here, and as we've had a love-hate relationship ever since. I think. Typical of firefighter-police relations. But anyway, Mike, I know, let's get into a little bit of your history. You come from kind of a firefighter family, and why don't you talk a little bit about your life as a younger boy? I know it was a long time ago, but
yes, it was.
What you can remember.
I can't remember a thing about it, no. I grew up connected with the fire service. My dad was a volunteer firefighter, went through the ranks, even served as the chief of the department for 5 years until he got promoted into a position in his full-time job that he just felt like he couldn't do both jobs justice, so he stepped back to a captain position. But he served on the Kingman Fire Department for 30 years. And I remember growing up with it. Like I said, all but the apparatus operators were volunteer, and these people were part of the community. They were business leaders and coaches and principals and business owners, gas station owners, highway patrolmen, all of them. But they served in that capacity on the volunteer fire department, give back something to the community and provide that resource because there was no other way to provide it.
Yeah, and Kingman was probably, what was the population back then?
Back about 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And they had about 30 or 40 members in the department, and it was like a family. It was kind of a social group as well. That's how they connected. They stayed friends. They practiced every week for 3 or 4 hours a night, and had a business meeting once a month. And Christmas morning we'd go down there and have a get together. The families would visit and show, the kids would all run around the fire station, show each other what they got, but we were always connected with the fire station and the fire department, and we always knew when there was a fire in town because the fire whistle blew, or as time evolved, they got these big radio pagers that notified them of an event. And I grew up in the service, always knew I was going to be a fireman. I just didn't know that I was going to be blessed with the opportunity to do it as a career and make money in the process.
So, and your dad, and your experience with firefighting certainly wasn't always positive. And your dad was involved in a fatal accident out in Kingman that, as you talk to firefighters across the country, everybody knows about this. And talk a little bit about that, Mike.
It was one of the most tragic events that occurred in the fire service in this country. 1973. July 5th, right in the middle of the afternoon, there was a 30,000-gallon propane tanker that was offloading at the Doxall plant in town. And they had an accident when they were trying to tighten down the hoses, caused a leak, dropped a wrench, caused a spark, and the tank was immediately on fire. The fire department got called out. They were laying in lines, big lines, to try to get big water on the thing. This propane tanks, when they burn at the top of the tank on the vapor space, that's real dangerous because of the ability to damage the metal on it. And anyway, while they were setting up operations, it gave way and it blew. We had 100 people in the community injured, 11 firefighters and an employee from that Doxall company were killed. And again, I go back to the point that we were family. We were friends. There were 4 people that were killed on it that I played softball with. They were on my softball team. Principal of high school, my dad, owner of the bakery, 3 gas station owners, highway patrolman, and over the course of the next 2-3 weeks, we were losing a fireman every day or 2 that were passing from their injuries from the fire. But I kind of made a commit. I had been going to school down in the Phoenix area, and I kind of made a commitment. You know, I'm going to pursue this. I want to get an education in this industry, and maybe go back up there and try to keep something like that from ever happening again through education and knowledge. And that event up there is still studied.
Yeah.
We're still doing it. As a matter of fact, the 40th anniversary of that thing is next year, and the State Fire School is going to restudy that thing, look at lessons learned, what differences did it make in our industry, and how can we make the next 2 generations aware that, hey, there's certain things you got to be careful about.
You know, and like I said, I don't think there's a firefighter that I talk to that isn't aware of this event. And I have a brother who just retired from the fire service, and you know, he and I were both fortunate enough to travel through Kingman and visit the memorial, which is a beautiful memorial.
They really did an outstanding job putting that together.
So it is a tragedy, but as you generally do, particularly in public safety with tragedies like this, is you take them and you review them and you learn from them, and just you know, try and prepare yourself not to let something like that happen again. You also have other family in the fire service?
Yep, got a brother serving as a full-time captain paramedic on the fire department there, another brother who's a volunteer captain. My son has entered the fire service and is serving as a lieutenant paramedic here. And a brother-in-law retired as a fire management officer for the Kaibab Fire District. Kind of runs in the family.
Yeah, no kidding.
You really get it in your blood, and I don't mean that with any disrespect to anyone, but there is a passion that you get in this industry because it's immediate. It feeds an adrenaline. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity to try to make a difference, and the gratification in saving a building, getting somebody out of a building alive, making a difference in life. You know, we've evolved in pretty much an EMS industry, emergency medical, that sometimes fights fires because we've done a good job of being proactive about fire in our country, and we've reduced the fire problem dramatically through good public education, code enforcement, and built-in fire protection, and it really truly has made a difference. And I think City of Cottonwood's on the leading edge of that as well, and we've seen a dramatic turnaround there, and we've made some steps that very few communities have had the opportunity to make.
You know, and I would certainly agree with you, Mike, and you know, I think what we'll do is we'll take our first break and then come back and talk about some of those cutting-edge efforts you've made here in Cottonwood that has made this community a lot safer. So come back and join us with Chief Mike Casson, and we'll talk a little more about firefighting.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Thousands of fires across the United States are caused by careless people. Hi, I'm Fire Marshal Rick Contreras with the Cottonwood Fire Department. The major threat of human-caused fires are from burning debris that get out of control or improperly extinguished or unattended campfires. Remember that fireworks have no place on our wild lands. Become part of the solution. Learn more about proper fire safety by contacting the local fire department.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, and I'm here today with Fire Chief Mike Casson, who is on the verge of retiring, and so we want to get his last words of wisdom, because quite honestly, we've heard so few of them while he's been here. But you know, and that's
always a dig from a cop.
And that's the relationship Mike and I have,
Yes,
and
yes.
probably very typical of the fire-police relationship. We have a tendency to really rib each other, but when push comes to shove,
The teams come together.
that's right. I
Yeah.
mean, we get things done, we protect each other, and we know that if either of us gets hurt in the line of duty, the other's going to be right there for us to help us out. But
Yeah, on the exterior, the barbs can come pretty good, but on the interior, we're all there for each other.
Absolutely. You know, as right before the break, Mike was talking about Cottonwood and how our really approach to fire prevention is on the cutting edge. So talk a little bit about that, Mike, because I think we're probably one of the few communities in the state that has a fire sprinkler ordinance that's as extensive as ours is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that evolution came from, as I said, after the event happened in Kingman, I changed my degree program, and I was pursuing a fire science degree down in the Valley of the Sun, and I had the opportunity to go to work for the Rural Metro Fire Department in Scottsdale on a part-time basis while I was going to school. And the founding father of that organization was very much into risk assessment, utilization of resources, and proactive, preventive method of providing fire protection in the community. And Scottsdale was the first community in the state of Arizona to adopt a fire sprinkler ordinance. And that came about as a result of a lot of studies in identifying that having that little sprinkler head up inside that building when a fire does ignite is going to eliminate 90% of the fires that happen in a safe and effective way without a lot of damage to structures, and firemen aren't getting hurt when they show up 5 minutes later and the structure's starting to collapse. And I saw that as being really, really a common sense way to provide fire protection in the community. Certainly from our perspective as firefighters is not as challenging and exciting to go out and do that, but I just got to believe that that's just the right way to do it. You're keeping people from getting hurt, you're keeping communities from getting damaged, and you build it in the building, and you've got a firefighter on duty 24/7 inside that house. And we brought this concept to Cottonwood when I came, and in 2004, with the support of well, not just the fire department people, but the city management and the city council. And we had support even from some of the developers and builders in the community that thought this is a good idea. And we were able to give some what I call trade-ups in development requirements. We didn't need streets as wide so we could get 2 great big fire trucks by. We didn't need 2 or 3 accesses into it because we didn't have to get around to the other side of the buildings. Water lines didn't have to be so big, hydrants didn't have to be close together, separations didn't have to occur as much. So the cost of that sprinkler system going into the homes was offset somewhat by these development trade-ups. And we got these in the buildings. We got any residential structure in our community now must be sprinklered when it's built. And we've had some successes with it too. I can point out a dozen fires in our community that turned out to be several $100s worth of damage as opposed to thousands. And in some cases, as I say in fire prevention, we saved a life today. We don't know how or where we did it, but through our public education, through our code enforcement, through our commitment to building in fire protection in our community, we're saving lives. We just can't write it down.
Well, and that's exactly it. I know, you know, I bought a newer home, and it has fire sprinklers in it, and there is a sense of comfort in that. And I remember it seemed to me that when I came to Scottsdale back in '92, that was right about the time that Rural Metro was pushing it through, as I recall.
Yeah. In fact, I think it was in place by then. We were doing studies on the thing in the early 80s, and I think they adopted it in the mid to late 80s.
But the ultimate outcome was that I know they estimated 70% of the structures, both residential, commercial, in Scottsdale would be sprinkled by the time it grew out. And I've certainly been aware of their experiences where by the time they get there, the fire's out.
Yeah. Which,
again, like you say, is just a tremendous asset to a community in terms of reducing the cost of not only to lives, but your insurance costs go down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your, what is the rating? The ISO rating improves dramatically, which again impacts your insurance rates. So
yeah, you get a double ding on the insurance. You get the reduction because you've got a sprinkler in your building, and you get a reduction because our fire protection rating is improved because we've got that in our community. And that day will come when when Cottonwood is 80% sprinkled
right.
in our community.
Yeah.
And that's what we were looking for when we chased that thing down.
Right. You know, and you and I have talked about with this kind of an ordinance in place, you really begin to look at alternative response methods, mm-hmm. because your role has really changed dramatically over the years anyway, from one of primarily just fighting fires. Now you're really becoming more of first responders for medical calls.
Correct.
And so then you begin to ask yourself the question of, you know, do you really need to send a big truck that's really equipped for fighting fires to a medical aid, or, you know, 2 trucks or whatever. Yeah. And I think it's evolving.
It is, and I think we're on the verge of some significant changes in that process. You're still going to have the big red trucks with 4 guys on that truck for those types of events. Absolutely. When those disasters do occur. But when you're running 2 pieces out of a house because of the call volume, you can run one of those as a smaller rapid response attack vehicle that can respond and cover a significant part of those EMS calls with the ambulance. And that's something, the evolution in bringing the ambulance and the fire into one industry, into one organization, makes a lot of sense to me too, because you got that synergy of using that resource and you don't have to send all of it every time. And it's resource management against the risk that we're facing, and the willingness and the ability of the community to pay for it. It's a pretty easy model to look at. Just defining exactly where that is, it's tough.
You know, and I tell you, and you and I have talked about this as well, that as a police professional, or that was my background, my hat's really off to the fire service, because you guys have focused so much on prevention. And I still think to this day, that's where law enforcement is missing the boat. We don't spend enough time on crime prevention. Yeah. And I'd really like to see us focus on that a lot more, because I think you can do things environmentally, physically, through construction, through design, that reduce those kind of risks, like fire. Same with crime.
Yeah, and the public education component for law enforcement is absolutely huge, and we can turn that mindset around as these kids are going through their developmental years and they're imprinted, and they start behaving and making the wrong decisions. And you guys are doing some of that with the MAT Force effort and some of those things. There's some progress is coming in that arena, but and where we can do some of that joint. We don't even call it fire safety education anymore. We call it fire and life safety education. We're trying to teach people to make good decisions that affect their lives as well. We're in the high schools, we're in the middle schools, working with those kids, trying to get them to recognize that you take care of yourself, then you can take care of your families. Then you make the right decisions. We've got the kids from the court system coming to our fire station for a mental rehabilitation, as much as I'd call it anything else. But that's trying to teach these kids that you can change your route, make good decisions, and not become a ward of the court and the legal system as you grow up. You can be a productive member of society. And the more partnering we can do with law enforcement on that, it's just about quality of life in the community when you stop and think about it.
Well, and again, my hat is certainly off to you and your guys, because you know, you guys have spent so much time working in the community beyond being firefighters, just being a part of the community and supporting the many fine efforts that go on. Let's go ahead and take our next break, and then we'll come back and talk about kind of regional firefighting and some of the, the push and pull of, that regional authority effort that's going on.
Okay.
Come back and join us.
Meet the team at Arizona Smile Designers, offering complete comprehensive, restorative, and aesthetic dentistry. Dr. Vergara and Dr. Lord specialize in dental health, implants, and cosmetic dental procedures. Expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment bring forth the most from your smile. Dr. Ripplinger conveniently comes to Arizona Smile Designers for oral surgery and complicated procedures. Visit Arizona Smile Designers at 350 South Willard in Cottonwood. Insurance and new patients are welcome. Call 634-8610.
Thousands of fires across the United States are caused by careless people. Hi, I'm Fire Marshal Rick Contreras with the Cottonwood Fire Department. The major threat of human-caused fires are from burning debris that get out of control or improperly extinguished or unattended campfires. Remember that fireworks have no place on our wildlands. Become part of the solution. Learn more about proper fire safety by contacting your local fire department.
See where Chris goes.
Welcome back. Sorry, I was chatting with Mike again here. Yeah. But we're here with Fire Chief Mike Casson, who's getting ready to retire. And I'm your host, Doug Bartosh, City Manager. Mike, I know there's been, we've certainly been involved in a lot of discussions about consolidating fire services. And I think it's important that people know that there really is kind of a consolidation now, where there's an automatic aid system to where you guys back each other up and assist each other, and to the average citizen out there, it really is very seamless. And so, there, and I think we've probably experienced this more than other jurisdictions, because there has been annexation efforts which legitimately do impact the districts around us, and I understand their concerns. But on the other hand, I think that it's proving to be a detriment to the betterment of this region when these annexations go by the wayside. Yeah. And a perfect example of that is the Verde Villages, 4,500 septic tanks. We know they're at least 30 years old. We don't know where the waste is going. Is it impacting our river? Is it impacting our aquifer? And truly something's going to have to be done. And so, the city's probably best prepared to do that. But we continue to seem to run into this conflict over who should provide firefighter service. What are your thoughts?
Boy, that's a big package to deal with in one short thing.
Yeah, we need another half hour for that show.
The idea of a municipal model in the community, and I'm not just talking about fire protection, but cities are formed, they grow, communities form and they grow, and they establish a city or town position in it so that they can get an umbrella of services that are important to the people in that community for their quality of life. Fire protection is only one component of that. Your law enforcement, your streets, your water, sewer, utilities, and your community recreation are all part of that umbrella of services that are important to people in the community. And I think short-sighted viewpoints kept annexations from occurring back 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where open spaces that had the potential to develop should have been annexed, and it didn't happen. Once the annexations are in place, then it's very difficult for them, or once once a development is in place, it's very difficult for it to move forward because it's difficult for people to embrace change. And there's always some reason why it shouldn't happen. And the fire district, fire department funding issue is a part of that problem. Fire districts are funded through property tax, and when properties are annexed into the city, the fire districts lose that income that helps them provide that service. But the bottom line is the idea of this area being one community just makes a lot of sense. You're never going to change. You've got Clarkdale already as a town and Cottonwood already as a municipality. You're not going to change that situation other than maybe to establish them as boroughs. But I think all of not just the fire department, I think all of the city services should be under one, all community services should be under one umbrella and one decision-making process. And, you know, I was challenged with that when I first got here in the community was, hey, see what you can do to try to bring this thing together. And we were making some pretty good progress on it back in the early 90s. Late 90s, mid to late 90s. We were making some really good progress on it until there was a group of people in the Verde villages that wanted to become a part of the city of Cottonwood for the reasons you stated earlier. And when that came up, the emotional walls came up and it just shut that thing down. Like I jokingly said, the Great Wall of China just went up. We are still committed and we still do, and no matter what type of decision making is made at that level, we have to be committed to help each other out because none of us have the ability nor the funding or resources to provide that total need for service when the really bad one hits in our communities. And we do have a rather seamless response program. It's all automatic aid. Closest, most appropriate trucks are dispatched to all multi-unit assignments in our communities. We had, for example, we had a fire last week in Old Town, and we had Clarkdale and Jerome and Verde Valley Fire helping us out with that fire. We had Sedona sent an engine down to help cover all of our areas while that fire was going on. And vice versa. We've been, you know, we've had a significant part of our resources up in Sedona during the Brins and La Barranca fires. We've been over to Rimrock, we've been to Camp Verde, we've been to Cornville, and we help each other out. When the call comes in, we send the resources, and they do the same. At a functional level, there is already consolidation. Right. The idea of trying to bring it together under a political and a funding structure is what very difficult to get through, because local autonomy is important in our society, in our country today. And I had the discussion with the staff over in Clarkdale a few years ago when they were hunting for a fire chief. Well, what's the best way to provide fire protection around here? And I said, you take all these communities, you bring them all together under one municipal umbrella, and you provide the services under that one umbrella. Well, that's not going to happen. You didn't ask me what was going to happen. You asked me the best way to do it. And I feel very strongly about that. You've got to have a governance out there that's looking at the big picture, all of the needs of the community, not just the fire protection, and then make your decisions on levels of services and the funding of those services based on all of those needs in the community, not just the fire side or the EMS side or the law enforcement side. You got to look at the big picture, and I feel very strongly about that, and I think the best way to put this thing together is through a municipal model. You can still leave some of those governances in place to determine like the levels of service that they may want in their communities, how much they're willing to commit funding-wise to do it, but it should be operated under one big municipal umbrella.
You know, and I think you brought up a good point, Mike, and certainly our city council has discussed this issue and so far has really said, no, we're not interested in going into a district. Because they feel like it could negatively impact our residents from a funding or a taxing standpoint. And I think they do feel like there's a strong desire to have that level of control where it's not just a single focused decision about budget, that it's a multi in looking at all the needs of our community
as a whole, as opposed to breaking it out one at a time. But
I guess on on the good side, we are looking and moving forward, hopefully, on a regional communication center, which again will help solidify that effort towards consolidation and certainly integrate services a lot better.
Absolutely be a good step in that direction. One-stop shopping when somebody calls for public safety services makes sense to me. This would be a good way to go.
You know, with that, Mike, we're at the end of the show.
And I'm at the end of my tour of duty.
So, Mike, congratulations to you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Great job,
Doug.
and thanks
It's
for
been a
all you
pleasure
do.
working with you.
And I know you're still going to be around and helping us out wherever you can. But thanks for all your service, not only to Cottonwood, but the state of Arizona.
And thanks to the city for their support.
And so with that, on May 23rd at 2 o'clock at the Recreation Center, we're having a send-off for Mike, and the public is invited. So if you can get out there to say goodbye to Mike, give him a big kiss, I'm sure he'd love it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon on Inside Cottonwood.